All right, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of Boundaries of Brotherhood with my co-host, Miss Tara J. Pitts from Stop Doing It All book. Right. And today we're going to be going over the 5 pillars of one of the chapters in her book that kind of explains what you need in business if you're getting overwhelmed, you're getting stressed out. If you don't know who I am, I'm Gordon Wat, from originator from Boundaries of Brotherhood. I do have my channel, and you have my co-host, Miss Sarah Pitts. Sarah, introduce yourself, what you're all about, in case somebody watches this on replay again, so we can get these things moving again.
Hey, I'm Sarah. I'm from England in the UK, so I am across the pond. I'm currently 8 hours ahead of Gordon, so it's some ungodly time in his morning right now. But he's graciously spending the time with me. I help solo business owners to get past the things that they're overwhelmed with, get past everything that they're stuck with, and just kind of be their best selves, really, without all the stress and the overwhelm. And yeah, so that's my book. Thanks, Gordon. So I suppose I ought to say at this point I am an international best-selling author as well. But that book that got to #1. So thanks to everybody who bought them and supported me in that way.
Yes, I mean, it's so interesting because I know a lot of different people, a lot of spaces, and a lot of things, but working with Sarah has been one of the best things for not just myself, but everybody else that's going to read this content, watch this content, do things with it, because her book, right? If you haven't even, let's see, because I'm Stop Doing It All, she does have bonuses, right? Go to stopdoingitallbook.com, where she's going to give you some breakdowns of some of the pillars going into our show today, because everybody needs, if you're an entrepreneur, solo entrepreneur, going into business, thinking about business, even in the midst of a business, right? Because that's what I have to go do later on today. I have to go check out something else. The things she talks about in her book are dead on 100% right. And she can kind of like move you in the right direction so you don't go through all the pitfalls of the emotional stress. And she hits a lot of good points. And this is why I'm promoting it also, because I believe in her, the book, and what she stands for was everybody needs this type of guidance. Everybody needs this type of guidance before they get into, because if they don't have the emotional well-being of itself, things will go south really fast. You get burnt out, you get overwhelmed, all this other stuff. Sarah, where did you come up with the idea and the pillars that you created in the book? Give us some good insights of why it was so personal to you.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I started writing the book before I knew what I was going to say, which is a really, really stupid idea. I have to say, I don't recommend that to anybody. If you're going to write a book, then have think about it first. But yeah, I decided to join in a challenge with Jim Edwards and a lot of other people that were doing a write a book challenge, because he basically said to me, "You're going to write a book, aren't you?" I was like, "Yeah, okay. What am I going to write it about? I don't know. I have always got stuff done pretty quick. Let's have a go at that." And then I'm thinking, yeah, but there's loads of productivity books out there. And for me, it's more than just checking things off a list, because I've tried. I've been in business now for 20 years, over 20 years for myself. And I tried putting my business online in 2014. And for years, people were like, "Oh, you have to put yourself out there. You have to go and do interviews. You have to do podcasts. You have to do guest blog posts. You have to ask people for stuff." And I was just like, this does not feel like a comfortable thing for me to be doing at all. And it wasn't until I realized that the industry that I was trying to be in, so it was a fitness industry, I was trying to go against conventional wisdom, push up lots of people. So they were really mean to me. And I take things quite personally. I'm quite a sensitive soul. That didn't feel comfortable to me. And I tried the whole, oh, get over yourself, just push through it, all that stuff. I tried it, and it didn't matter how hard I pushed myself to do things that I really didn't like doing, which I did. I did do them, but there was so much resistance against doing the things. And I was like, this is not your average productivity. Everybody can get stuff done. Everybody can organize themselves. Everybody can time block. Everybody can do all of this stuff. What's something that makes it unique to me?
Right.
And it wasn't until I started trying to figure that out. And that's when I came up with the 5 pillars of potent productivity. And that's when I was like, oh, that's the angle. And then
Oh,
it kind of expanded into like
mm,
3 main sections of the whole method. But the thing that came first was the 5 pillars. So for
okay.
those people who don't know what they are, firstly, your goals. Secondly, customer care. Thirdly, add value. Fourthly, spread the word. And fifth, deliver on your promises. And it doesn't matter what business that you're in, you can pretty much divide up all of your tasks that you have to do for your whole business into those 5 pillars. And other people will do the same. Other people have called them different things. But for me, they are those things. And human beings are just creatures of habit, whether we like it or not. You know that if you can't think of what you want for dinner, you'll go to the same 5 recipes that you've been doing for the last 20 years, and you'll just think, oh yeah, I can't be bothered thinking about that today. We'll just have chili, or we'll just have barbecue, or we'll just have whatever it is that is your go-to thing, right?
Right.
Business, that creates areas of your business that you're neglecting because we don't notice that we're doing those things. We just do the things that make us feel comfortable. And for a lot of people, service-based business owners particularly, we focus on customer care because it's a reflection of ourselves, because it's us in the business, it's us being the face of the business, and it's quite a personal thing. So we kind of forget about ourselves. So that's your goals gone out the window. We focus on
Right.
customer care. We try and add value to people. I feel uncomfortable spreading the word, right? So we don't do that, but I do make sure that I deliver on my promises. So there's at least 2 of those things that I am not focusing on as much as I could do. And if I'm not careful, it leads to stagnation, it leads to frustration, and it leads to
Mm,
no progress really with the business. So the whole point of the 5 pillars was to help people create balance across their business and identify the tasks as being in certain categories, if you like, so that they can see on a daily basis, am I doing the things that I ought to be doing to achieve my goals? Am I spreading the word? Am I doing enough in this area? And it's just that, because you're doing it all yourself, it's just the case of, well, I'll just get as much done as fast as I can. And then, it's like, well, it's done now. I can move on. And we never really hold ourselves accountable. We never really check that what we're doing is productive and helpful for the business. It's just, well, I've got it done. Well done, me.
right, right, right. So a lot of the pillars, and you like you said it yourself. A lot of the times, people have interpretation of what their business is going to be, what their USP, your unique selling point is going to be, how much time they're going to put in. Then you start adding a little bit other factors. Now you start neglecting quality. You start neglecting value. You start neglecting because you just trying to push that product out the service. And like Sarah said, right, she hit it right on the money. It was like every business has a little bit of you in it, regardless of how you look at it. Because a lot of the times people forget that business is all about relationships and solving problems. If you don't know how to do that, and say you have a problem yourself, right? And she talks about this in the book with the productivity method, and it's trademarked, right? Because that's one of the things she has in her book, how to get this all done, because that's going to be your USP. Now, if your USP doesn't relate to people, you're just another leaf floating in the river, right? This is going to go right past, nothing special. Sarah, how is this helping? How did this book help you bring out your misconceptions of business?
Oh, yeah. Good question. Yeah, I think, I've worked in the injury industry a long time, right?
Mm,
And I know that when you have pain, the more you do something and experience that pain, physical pain we're
nice.
talking about
Yep.
here, the less likely you are to do it again, right? So when I was in my early 20s, I'm in my late 40s now, but in my early 20s, I was manipulated badly. So I had a spinal adjustment and it was done badly. And I strained the ligaments in my spine. So
Yes.
I had incredible back pain,
Pain.
many years. And the more often I had my back pain, the less I wanted to move. So even like putting my socks on in the morning, you to brace yourself and prepare yourself for the fact that it's going to hurt, but I need to put a sock on, you know? So you just kind of prepare yourself for that pain. And I think those past experiences really drive our behaviors as we go forward. And it's only when we start experiencing different things around those same issues that we stop anticipating problems and we start enjoying doing it. So if I took away, for example, I took away my back pain, I took away hundreds of people's back pain, and they'd had it for decades. And so their instinct was to brace and be, what's the word, apprehensive about moving. Once
Absolutely.
it had gone, they were still apprehensive of moving because they had the pain before. It wasn't going to hurt this time, but the brain needed a few times, a few repetitions, a few experiences of moving in a non-painful way for them to get over that and forget about that and move forwards.
Absolutely.
Exactly the same for people in business. I mean, I used the example before of me in the fitness industry not really wanting to put myself out there and spread the word because of the experience I'd had before of that being very unpleasant and something that I didn't like doing. And it's interesting how it's like layers of taking away doubt, right? The whole book just layers on one after another ways of taking away about what you're doing, who you are, your credibility, and why you're out there doing what you're doing, right? And the more you take away the doubt, the easier it is to do those hard things. And then you get a better experience, and then you start forgetting how hard you thought it was before, and you start actually maybe even enjoying the experience, and it totally turns things around.
I mean, I gotta give Sarah for the best explanation because what business is really about is those hills and valleys that you go through that you take away all the doubt in business. Everybody's scared to do business. Everybody's scared to go into the unknown, like Sarah says in the interpretation of it all, where you don't know what's going to come the next day. You don't know if you're going to put yourself out. You don't know if you're going to flop on this up. But at the end of the day, what she has created is a way to get away from the doubt and to just come out with everything else that you need. Because all of us, as you mentioned, me and Sarah have been with Jim Edwards for a long time. The foundational work that he has instilled in us, I mean, shout out to Jim, is just simply amazing, right? Now, is there other ways to do it and create your own USP instead of trying to do his thing and stuff? Now we start making our own creativity. And that's what Sarah did. She made her own course, did the checklist, how to get over your emotional feelings of doubt in your business moving forward. As you can tell, right? Miss Pitts, this is taken out for her to get on camera because she is living proof that you can stop doing it all with a little nudge. And her courses give you the nudge to be confident about yourself, right? Let's talk about that next. The confidence in business versus just going through the motion.
Yeah, and I think this comes back to having something that you truly believe is different, right? This comes back to your USP. It comes back to that name that you call your process. Everybody has a process. You might have been living this process, and it's been exactly the same for me in this book. This potent productivity is just something I have been doing without even thinking about it for the last 47 years, right? It takes sometimes a step back for you to go, right, well, I do this, and then I do this, and then I do this. And when you put it in a process and you call it something really exciting, then you're really excited about it. And it's like, oh, I do have something different. And it stops you comparing yourself to other people. And even if you do, you know your process, you know how that person is different to you, and they might end up being a friend. They might end up being a colleague rather than a competitor.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. Absolutely.
when you
Now, I wanted to touch upon that one because you said something. There was something in your book. What you think is common sense to you is not common sense to other people. This is from Sarah's book of her helping out. Was it a police officer or a detective, retired detective?
yeah, yeah,
A retired detective about her. She thinks her knowledge is common sense to everybody,
mhm,
but it's not. And you helped her create a course so that she can be excited about her business. And I have the exact same mentality. It's everything is common sense. You don't know it. What are you talking about? Right?
yeah,
But then even though, like you said, say you need help with a process, Sarah is one of the best. If you look at the way she lays it all out, finalizes everything, make it systematic in a way where she's prompting for you in the AI stage right now. Sarah is a master prompter for creating this in real life, right? Let's see. So I interpret things in.
yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. So the thing that I like to say is that the one thing that I have learned about common sense is that nobody else has got any.
No, that was beautiful. You heard why didn't you?
Yeah, they just don't have the same common sense as you because it's common to you. It's you've known it for such a long time. And especially if you've been doing things your way and you don't know that that's different to everyone else. You just think that everybody knows what you know. And then that means that your unique thing is hiding. Your unique process is just not, it's just hiding because you haven't pulled it out into the light yet.
Oh, that's deep. That's
You know?
really, really deep. You didn't pull it out into like, let me, if you was to work with a client, say I was your client, say I'm Joe Schmo client, this and that, what would be the process without giving your trademark secrets?
Yeah.
Buy the book, buy the course, reach out to Sarah, get her to at least make a assessment of what you got going on, right? And figure out if I was Joe Schmo and a client and I had a situation, what would be your top 5 questions?
Well, now you're putting me on the spot. I don't know.
Of course, I want to put you on the spot because now we're going to see common sense. Stop coming from stop doing it.
Yeah, I think I prefer to spend time with people. Filling in forms and asking generic questions is not my bag. You know,
Okay.
I like to get to know people because what they say to you when they're just chatting, like we are now, is often gold. And they
Yeah.
don't know. They don't know what they're saying. So I've worked with people one to one so much now. I'm just writing as they're talking. I just jot notes down whenever I hear something that I think, oh, hang on a minute, that sounds like it could be useful. I just write it down. And then I read back to them what they said to me. And they're like, oh my God, that's amazing. How did you know that? I'm like, because you told me.
You told me.
I didn't. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. I wrote it down. You said it. I've got it on recording. You said that. And
Exactly.
it's new information to them because they were just talking. They were just like, it's common sense. But it's
Well, the whole thing, right? Is like even for us, just join the conversation, right? When you do Zoom calls like this, when you're pitching a product, when you're selling a book, when you're doing anything, is everything is human beings. They want to be part of the conversation. And that's what Sarah does in her book because she takes the conversation out of your head. You just seen her do it, right? That's going on in your life. And let's figure out a way how we can get things moving. The thing with Sarah is, like she says, all she does is have a conversation. And that's what she teaches in her book, right? Because at the end of the day, really at the end of the day, both of you are spending time with each other, right? You spend time with your clients. I spend time with my clients, and it's you get to have that friendship. You get to have that camaraderie. You get to have that brother. This is why I have boundaries and brother. You do need boundaries in business and life and situation and family and everything else, but you also need somebody you can lean on. Sarah is the person you can lean on for
thank you.
systematic approaches. Let me ask you this another question. When you're talking to your clients, when you're in your book, you mention ego. I think so. Putting away that ego at some of the times. Have you seen a lot of your clients just don't want to work with you because of ego?
I think ego is a funny thing. I'm always like, I don't think I've got one, right? Because I don't have to be the best. I don't feel like I want to, I don't have to prove myself to anybody. I spent a long time in my life doing that. And I think you do that kind of
Absolutely.
20s and 30s and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And then you kind of go,
Right.
do you know what? That's a whole waste of time. I just need to look after me now.
Absolutely. And no, I think I agree 100%.
And I'm like, okay, so there's a lot of people in this world who are driven to be the face of their business. They're leaders. They lead from the front, all the rest of it. And I am the person who is sat next to them, just a little bit behind them, going, make sure you got this, make sure you got that. We're going over there. Don't forget this. That's me. I'm not the person in the front. So when I say I don't have an ego, I'm quite happy if somebody else wins. I'm quite happy if somebody else takes the lead. I don't have to be the face of everything. It's just not in my nature. What bothers me is whether I do my best or not. Whether integrity in what I'm doing, whether I am connected to people, whether I can share love with other people, because that's totally the opposite of ego. And it's not about putting your ego away, but it's about fulfilling your own sense of self before you present yourself to the world. Because when you are fulfilled in what you're doing and who you are and, your credibility and all that questioning goes away. That need to prove yourself and put your ego at the front of everything, that disappears too. And then you can be really helpful to people. And that's when you start connecting with them. That's when you start making money.
Like I said, I told you guys, Sarah is the most unselfish person because of trials and tribulations. Like like her, I've been that person in the back, not controlling, but doing everything else because I have to sign NDAs. And I've been a lot of people's secret weapon, basically. But a lot of times, when some people like to have that front man mentality, but they're unethical. This is when I kind of like do that bald facing up. This and that. I'm an ex-convict, so it's like I know about criminality firsthand, right? Let me ask this. When you're putting together, let's see, a docket, a folder with your clients and stuff, right? When using your book, how do you make it so or reasonable for them to understand? Because there's so many questions, because there's so many things going on in people's head. What is your secret weapon to simplify?
I always like to explain it in a way. It's like we take the contents of your brain, we shake them out onto the table, and then I give you them back in a logical order. So they just make sense to you. And I think for me, it's kind of my superpower these days is like ignoring all the distractions, but it's not dismissing them. And I think that's really important. It's not dismissing them at all, because all of these half-thought ideas, half of these, when you know what you want to say, but you can't quite put your finger on it, all that kind of stuff, that comes out in conversations. And so when I'm listening to my clients and I'm helping them to understand things, when I'm saying things in a really simple way and a really understandable way, they're like, oh, now I get it. And when that penny drops, when they're very, very clear about what their process is and who they are and why they're doing what they're doing and who they're doing it for and, how they're going to proceed forwards, they're surprised. They're always amazed at how simple the roadmap becomes.
Yes.
They were looking at this huge mountain of stuff that they felt like they had to do. And I'm like, okay, so when we get clear about your process and who you are and all the foundations of your business and how you're going to implement that, you might have one opt-in, you might have one product, you might have a group training, you might have a one-to-one offer. It doesn't really matter what it is.
Don't matter. It really doesn't matter.
It's simple, and focusing on those things is like your core offer. It's something I talk about in foundations. When you know what that is, everything's leading to that one thing. So then the decision making and what do I do next? How do I do this? Which type of lead magnet should I make? All that kind of stuff, it goes away because you know what your core offer is. So it makes sense then to break it down into lots of different things. And that way you can choose what you want to do next when you're ready to do it. And I think that's
Right.
part of the problem, isn't it? We just want it
Correct.
now.
Yeah.
And when it's done, we move on to the next thing. And it's like, no, 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 hang on. We need to promote this thing. We need to make you some money. We need to,
Right. I mean,
we need to
I mean,
get
it all needs
Yeah.
It all depends because a lot of times you have to have also steps in like you saying your 5 pillars. Where are you promoting? If you're not good at promoting, you outsource it to somebody else, somebody to do something else. If you're not good at, I mean, even like even for copywriting right now, you can throw your ideas into a GPT model and make your own, right? As far as automation stuff, it's never been so much easier to do business now. But at the end of the day, you have to be the core. You have to know your core product, your issue, the USP, like you talking about, because that's one of the clear foundations that you have to have in order to become moving into that blueprint of it. Though. Because if you move all that crap on the side, it's easier if you just keep it simple. And that's what Sarah does, because if you're getting overwhelmed, a lot of the stuff is you're just doing it to yourself. I, I want to talk about how confidence with emotions of, let's say, logical versus emotional confidence. Where do you see the rift, the separation, and what works for you?
Yeah, I think they're tied together. For me, you can't separate them because it comes down to stability.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. Stability.
Yeah, that feeling of stability, it's balancing for your logical self. It's also balancing for your emotional self. So when you have a feeling of stability in, where your money's coming from, whether you're being connected with people, whether you're being truthful to who you are, whether you're putting your best work out there and all of those things you have stability in all of those areas of your life, then then your logical self can kick in. And when you plan, when your roadmap is logical and that makes sense, it's all layers, it's all layering it up. And that's what happens when you work through the book. The 3 areas of the potent productivity method, we've got clarity, direction, balance, and direction. So when you have clarity in who you are, that you have stability in what you're doing through your actions, and then your roadmap, your direction is very clear and very simple, then logically, well, there's no reason to panic.
True. Very true. Very true.
It's all kind of tied together, and think that's what I really love about the whole idea. Initially, it was based on emotion, but it's come out as being so much more than all of that.
So if I'm hearing correctly, if they logic and emotion mix together, right? But you sell to emotions and you sell to the dream of the emotion, but logically you set the blueprint. How is that meshed together if it's also separated, or how do you combine it to gain the stability that you're talking about? Because that's interesting.
Yeah, and that's when the strategy comes in. When you have a strong strategy about what you're doing and why you're doing it. You haven't just thrown together some random offer with a whole load of crap bonuses that don't mean anything to anybody, but it just looks good because of the lot.
Okay.
Then that's not a great strategy because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to the buyer. It doesn't make sense to you as a business owner. And when it doesn't make sense in the ecosystem of your business,
Yes.
then
Yes.
then it becomes overwhelming because these seem like random bits of your business and you can't see how they fit together. But when your whole business is based on everything working together, then it becomes a lot more manageable. It becomes a lot less stressful. I've totally forgotten the question you asked me. So if I haven't answered that, then I apologize. But, that's kind of how it goes.
No, it made perfectly sense because the question was if logic and emotion separate, but at some point they mix together to gain the stability, because you need to have stability in both your logical reasoning and your emotions. Because if they both go our way, they kind of like doesn't work it out, because that's when you get friction, you get misconceptions, And your clients will all of a sudden like, man, now you're getting confusing.
Yeah.
Could you give me an example of how your productivity method fixes that stability issue? If somebody's like figuring out emotions versus logic, because that's a big thing. You make it look so easy,
Yeah. No,
right?
it is.
Most people, like you said, don't have that common sense or experience to actually do that, to weave it, right?
Yeah. So for me, it's very much like the emotional side of pain and the physical side of pain. So going back to my injury prevention days, injury treatment days, I would see firsthand how emotional stress was impacting on somebody's physical pain.
Mhm.
And it's very similar in business. Emotions and logic are two sides of the same coin, and they feed each other. So if your logic is off, you feel stressed. But if your stress is high, then your logic can go.
Logic is out the window.
Yeah. So you have to have both sides of that same coin in place in order to have that stability. And that's where the strategy comes in.
Nice. That was perfectly put, because guys, if you're watching this on the replay, this is what having stability, not just your business, money come and go, people will come and go, plans will come up. If you don't have stress, confidence within yourself, everything goes out the window, because this is where, like Sarah said, her unique style, her frameworks is going to pull the best out of you. We're going to shake it all up, see where all the pieces fall out, the lint, the jacks, the marbles, all the things that, imagine if everything came out and Sarah's just going to put it all together and create a system that you can be happy with. How many people would that? Yeah.
It's not just any system, it's your system.
It's your system with your plate.
But the things that you tell me that have created your system.
Correct.
So for me, it's the best thing when somebody goes, oh yeah, because you don't forget, you've got the story of your life. You imagine it's a whole novel in your head of what's been happening in your entire life. It's really difficult to look at it and pick out bullet points. Somebody says, give me a summary of your life or why this is relevant. You're like, I don't know. Because you've got 50 things that happened yesterday going on in your head. How do I choose?
It goes, but that's part of the story in business, right? I mean, I can tell you about how my arm has to lean back for the chair to give my kids their iPad or phone. I mean, I could be if I'm over here and I got to go wipe somebody's butt because I'm on the toilet in the middle of but I understand them. That is just great analogies of it. Metaphorically, I can see how everybody could get away from him. Let's end with this, Sarah. If you're getting this call, there's bonuses on stopdoingitallbook.com. Go over to that. You're going to see in the replay, or follow on if you're going to see some of these things pop up over here. I want you to reach out to Sarah, because she might have the answers and the keys to unlock what's in your head for your business, both emotionally, strategically, and blueprint wise. She's helped thousands. I mean, that's thousands. She's helped hundreds of people already. I know. And she's been in business 20 years that does things for right reasons. Sarah, end with a good story about your worst client and how you changed them.
Yeah.
Or the hardest client, a situation.
Yeah. I think the most difficult clients are the people who are not willing to do the work and look into themselves. They think it's somebody else's responsibility. They think it's some pill that they take. They just, well, if I do X, Y, Z, as I say, Z, as you say, then ABC will happen. And it doesn't work that way in business, because the majority of being in business is about personal growth. Right.
Absolutely.
Always been like that. And let's face it, we've been doing business with each other way before money was even invented. We did bartering and all sorts of stuff before that. So
Correct.
money really isn't part of the equation. How you present yourself, how you feel about yourself is the key to getting anywhere.
Right. That confidence. And repeat that again, because for a lot of people that might be getting into this, didn't get the book, didn't get ready. Repeat what you just said, because that's a good. That's just, you hit that on the ring, because that's the one you should be saying. Repeat that whole phrase if you remember it. I'm going to put you on the spot.
I think it went something like, it is how you feel about yourself that makes you get anywhere, you know? And it doesn't really matter. I've worked with people who've made millions of dollars. I've worked with people who make $10 a week. It's
No.
out of their business. It doesn't really matter how much money you're making. Everybody has that imposter syndrome. Everybody has that doubt about comparing themselves to other people, or maybe I should be doing it like this, and it's not any of that that helps you move forwards. It's how we eliminate that doubt, it's how we give you confidence, and it's how you feel about yourself that will keep you on track.
Beautiful. I mean, I can't say any better, because when you come across the pond, you think different. I'm just kidding. But I understand. Let's end it right there. We can see if we can get for another show next week, guys. If you're watching this on the replay, guys, if you want some extra bonuses, some extra tips, tricks, and everything, head on over to stopdoingitallbook.com or watch the end reel. Where you can reach out to Sarah Pitts, guys. This is why we're working together. You're going to see a lot of business tactics come on. You're going to see a lot of business inspiration come out from us. You're going to see a lot of strategies, a lot of mental strategies come out. Guys, this is Gordon Wat from Boundaries Are With It. Stay tuned. Hit that like button. Subscribe to SJP and her channel. Figure out, because you're going to see a lot. Sarah, end the show, please.
Thank you, Gordon, for having me. It's been a lot of fun as always. Yeah, my channel is SJP Business Development. You can get the book at stopdoingitallbook.com. And yeah, Gordon, you're amazing, and I appreciate your time so much. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. Allah.